Mark, you look like you're on location.
I am indeed. I'm freezing cold. I'm in northern Minnesota, one of those Northern American states, and I am at a port. It is the most inland seaport in the world, apparently. It is 2,000 miles from the ocean, and yet ocean-faring vessels come in and out of here. You can guess why I'm here. Tariffs.
That sounds like a picture story, if ever there was one. I'm in a railway station just off 8th Avenue, Penn Station in New York, having spent the day at the New York Stock Exchange. You must forgive me if you hear from above the sound of rail announcements, the sound of the hand dryer from a toilet, or a restroom, which is about 20 yards that way. Oh, yeah, conversations from actual people who've got actual lives. What about you, Martha?
I'm
back in LA.
Yes, slightly less exciting. I'm at the end of my kitchen in my makeshift podcast studio.
I'm Mark Stone, and I'm on the road in Minnesota.
And I'm James Matthews in Penn Station, New York.
And I'm Martha Kelner in my kitchen in Los Angeles. And this is day 80 of Trump 100.
Yeah, today we'll digest some of the Supreme Court's latest decisions. They're swinging largely in favour of the Trump administration, but not totally. And there is some very important small print.
And Trump's tariffs on China take effect, now a whopping 104% as of this morning, Wednesday. I've been at the New York Stock Exchange, where the boards started green for good, but soon slipped back to red.
And former best buddy Elon Musk seems to have broken ranks even further, calling Trump's top trade advisor a moron. The White House press secretary says, well, boys will be boys.
Train 21,
oh, that's the 405 to wear, James.
I'm going no further than the food court.
Anyway, first to tariffs, the big issue of the day. And James, you've been on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange, rubbing shoulders with the traders, I assume. How many Wolf of Wall Street jokes have you made?
Precisely none, Martha, because I've never seen that film. My Wall Street film is Trading Places, Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd.
Showing your age again, James.
Yeah, I can't deny it. But yeah, listen, quite a place. You know, real iconic venue, half the size of a football pitch. Really welcoming, I have to say. All these traders, they've clearly been filmed before, know exactly what a TV crew is after. And I was struck by how different it is from that kind of cliche view of the old days. Now, of course, it's all calm, cathedral quiet, electronic computers, and so on. But the mood was buoyant. They were quite happy and jokey in reception. There was a group of students. They turned up. Their host said, welcome to the chaos. Quite, big laugh. Today, they were expecting the markets to bounce back, and they duly did. These monitors around the stock exchange floor were all green numbers, which meant the stocks were being bought because they were cheap, because trade negotiations were underway. Things were looking up, not as far up as they need to look, but it was all good until midday, the moment when Trump confirmed that there was going to be this 104% tariff on China. And things turned on a sixpence. Suddenly, you looked at the monitors, red figures, the markets were tumbling, going basically the wrong way. Bad news for markets around the world. Clearly, the public and policymakers, it gave them cause to worry. We spoke to some of the traders on the New York Stock Exchange floor.
If you were giving me a tariff plan that had a purpose and an end game that was going to make things better, so be it. You're the guy. You're the new sheriff in town. But we're not seeing any of this.
This has just got to do with the tariff.
I'm concerned that this is a major undertaking, okay? But I am confident that the president has the right vision.
At the end of the day, I remember seeing one guy just looking upwards, saying, half jokingly, just let the madness end. Another dark day in that place. And of course, a dark day for all of us, anybody who's invested in the markets, and we all are to some extent.
Yeah, and despite these numbers, the administration continues to blanket the airwaves with their positive messaging. They are not showing much evidence of flinching on these big tariffs, which came in on Wednesday morning across the world. They say they've received nearly 70 calls from various countries waiting to do deals. It feels as though there are people queuing up, world leaders queuing up outside the White House, which is exactly what Donald Trump wants. It is all textbook stuff, his textbook, the art of the deal. He's setting a strong, ambitious, some would say bonkers opening position. And it's peppered with aggression, with persistence, and with confidence. And around him, of course, a cast of true believers.
Yeah, they really are. And if there's anything we've come to expect from this administration, it's a seeming lack of introspection, complete lack of contrition, really. And Caroline Levitt, press sec, she was up at the White House podium again today, promising big tax cuts for Americans. This is all part of this so-called big, beautiful bill that they want Congress to pass. That is their long game here: slash taxes for everyday Americans, boost domestic jobs, and hope that other countries do respond to Trump's hardball tactics.
And I wonder if the promise of these negotiations is why we're seeing a slightly steadier scene here in the stock market, although clearly it's all relative. Let's listen to Caroline Levitt, the press secretary. This is what she had to say earlier.
The president's message has been simple and consistent from the beginning. To countries around the world, bring us your best offers, and he will listen. Deals will only be made if they benefit American workers and address our nation's crippling trade deficits. America does not need other countries as much as other countries need us.
That line from Caroline Levitt, America does not need other countries as much as other countries need us. But a deal with China, that prospect feels much, much further away, and probably accounts for those red boards that we saw at the stock exchange at the end of the day. The Chinese are calling it economic bullying. The volatility we're seeing might be because investors simply underestimated Trump's desire to follow through on these steep tariffs, to follow through on his promises.
Yeah, I was struck by China's statement. It came in overnight, Eastern time, US time, at the Ministry of Commerce, releasing a pretty lengthy statements. I'll read a key bit of it to you because it's pretty bullish stuff. It says the US threat to escalate tariffs on China is a grave mistake on top of an existing one, which once again exposes the US blackmail nature. It goes on to say China will never accept this. If the US insists on its own way, China will fight to the end. As I mentioned earlier, guys, I'm in Duluth at the moment, which is at the very north of one of America's northern states, Minnesota. The iconic, they call it iconic here anyway, the iconic gate that leads into the port. It is a gateway. We are right in the middle of America, 2,000 miles from the Atlantic. The bridge, the Gateway Bridge behind me, is the gateway to the Atlantic, which, as I say, is a long, long way away. This port is connected to the oceans via the Great Lakes. On a map, you can see how perfectly placed it is logistically, giving ocean-going ships access to the very heart of the American continent. Trade in and out of here is truly global. Grain, iron ore, cement, sand, containers of made in China products. I'll have much more from here in tomorrow's episode, but it's certainly safe to say there is an uncertainty and an anxiety here.
This feels like one of those stories, doesn't it, that affects everyone. And that was reinforced for me when I woke up this morning and I had a text from one of my friends who's in the UK, not particularly engaged with the news, saying that she'd lost £10,000 overnight from her and her partner's pension pot. And she says, what's going on? You know, people are really, really fearful. And I think there's that sense that we've been thrown back to a COVID era uncertainty, that panic that pervaded during the 3-4 years of COVID. But at least with COVID, you thought, as far as we know, this wasn't a deliberately man-made crisis. Whereas with this, we know exactly which man has caused it. And, you know, it's just been speaking to businesses in LA too, and they're taking this wait and see approach. So it's a headache for independent businesses right now.
Yeah, it feels like Elon Musk might be getting a bit of a headache from all this as well. He's certainly letting his frustrations be known. Shots fired in the administration today, for sure. The billionaire buddy of the president stuck the boot into his colleague and top trade advisor, Peter Navarro, tweeting, "Navarro is truly a moron." And he went on to say he's dumber than a sack of bricks.
Oh, dear.
This is almost the first time of them turning on each other, isn't it? The sort of closest people to Donald Trump. Elon Musk later said that he was sorry he called him dumber than a sack of bricks because that was insulting to bricks. So Musk's definitely starting to feel like an outsider on this policy now, not least because he might be trying to protect his own business interests. That spat was in response to Navarro saying that the parts of Tesla cars are not all made here in America. Well, Musk disputes that. And in stepped Caroline Levitt once again in kind of a mediator role.
Look, these are obviously two individuals who have very different views on trade and on tariffs. Boys will be boys, and we will let their public sparring continue.
It's a difficulty for Trump, the man in the middle of these two warring boys. And I tell you, in the New York Stock Exchange, the point was made to me, look, we have uncertainty, and that's no good for the markets. Now we have political disunity. We're not sure where Trump's taking this particular policy. And given that Elon Musk has his ear, is a man of some considerable influence in the White House, what influence does he have on this tariff policy? And, that division and that acrimony, that splintering inside the White House, it's not what the markets want to hear. We quickly mentioned in yesterday's episode some major developments in the Supreme Court. Now we can go into more detail. It was news, of course, of a partial win for Donald Trump around the use of the Alien Enemies Act. Essentially, that's a wartime law. The ruling on it means that he can keep deporting migrants who the administration accuses of being gang members. They can continue to deport them to El Salvador, providing they have time to challenge their detention. That's a key point for the people being picked up.
Yeah, the court didn't go as far as to say whether the people the government have already sent there are definitely gang members. They just said the government can keep doing this. They can continue to send these flights over to that notorious prison. Some of the more than 200 men sent there didn't receive any due process. And that is the key point here, the fact that many of them don't have any criminal records whatsoever. All 9 justices did agree that due process is vital in all this, that all the deportees should be entitled to a court hearing before a judge and appropriate notice to get to the court for that hearing. But we don't know what will happen to those who are already banged up inside that prison with notorious criminals, with suspected terrorists and gang members.
Yeah, but the core part of that ruling, I think, is absolutely key. The rule of law overriding the law of the ruler for now, it seems. But let's see how far the administration will go with this. Now, the Supreme Court today made a big decision on the DOGE cuts. DOGE, obviously, the Department for Government Efficiency, run by Elon Musk, although perhaps not run by him so much anymore. They paused a lawsuit, the Supreme Court, that is, paused a lawsuit which would have ordered the rehiring of about 16,000 probationary employees. It is at least a temporary victory for Trump and DOGE in their efforts to downsize the government.
As with virtually all rulings by the Supreme Court, it's nuanced. The court has said that the non-profit groups who brought this lawsuit on behalf of federal workers didn't directly have a stake in this, so they cannot bring the case. So it's less about the principle of cutting government jobs itself, more that this wasn't the right way to do it.
Both cases we have just mentioned there, the Alien Enemies Act and the DOGE case, they stopped short of being a full endorsement of Trump's policies. Intriguingly, Amy Coney Barrett wrote the dissent on the Alien Enemies Act. For anyone who doesn't know, Amy Coney Barrett was appointed by Trump in 2020. Many expected her to be a die-in-the-wall conservative, to absolutely back him on every case. And she was helpful to Trump initially in overturning Roe versus Wade. She has voted often with the conservative justices, but there are a few key cases now where she's voted against Trump, notably this one, the Alien Enemies Act, and she also rejected the administration's attempt to freeze nearly $2 billion in foreign aid recently. And the fact that she hasn't towed the party line, as it were, is really driving the ire of the MAGA faithfuls.
She's one to watch over the coming weeks for sure. There was another ruling today, not quite Supreme Court level, but the Associated Press won in federal court with a Trump-appointed judge ruling that their access to the White House Oval Office and other presidential events should be reinstated. You'll remember that they were stripped from access to the Oval Office and some other presidential events when they refused to call the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America. And actually, I've seen over the course of the past few weeks, at moments when the media goes into the Oval Office, there is always a White House staffer there just checking that there is no one from the Associated Press there. So a judge now saying very clearly what he is and what he is not ordering today. He is ordering for the government to put the Associated Press on an equal playing field as similarly situated outlets, despite the Associated Press's use of disfavored terminology. So a slap down for Trump there. Let's see whether the AP are back in the Oval Office at the next event.
Yeah, well, I can tell you there's breaking news on that, Mark, because while we've been recording this, listen to this from the president's pool. That's the body of journalists and media who follow the president wherever he goes. Pool loaded into the press vans at 6:25 p.m. for the short motorcade to the NRCC dinner at the National Building Museum. A reporter and photographer with the Associated Press were turned away from joining the pool, which asks a very important question, of course, about freedom of access. They've been excluded from this, despite that judge's ruling. That begs questions about the freedom of access, but also on this judge's ruling itself. You know, what regard does the Trump administration have, and what respect does it have for the ruling of a judge on this day? They've knocked back the AP yet again.
Yeah, I can see that one barreling up to the Supreme Court. Anyway, that is it for day 80 of Trump 100. It's good to all three of us be back together, albeit separately.
It certainly is. We'll be together again soon, I'm sure. If you do want to get in touch or have any questions for us that you'd like an answer to, you can email us as ever on trump100@sky.uk.
Many thanks for listening and for watching. We'll be back tomorrow for day 81. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye for now.
See you then.